think we are live. Welcome, world. So it's day three of Mental Health Awareness Week here in the UK, which means it's day three of a series of Substack lunchtime live conversations I'm doing to support that theme, the theme of this year, which is community. So I am talking to some of my favourite community leaders here on the platform, which probably makes it sound a bit more formal than it needs to. Basically, this is your invitation to grab a cup of tea and enjoy a nice conversation about the power of community as a way to help you feel good or maybe just a little bit better. And I know today's guest will be on board with a cup of tea and a chat. So today I am joined by the brilliant Jo Hutton, senior yoga teacher and yoga teacher trainer and founder of Yoga for Tired People. And we haven't met yet in real life, but I love what Jo's creating here on Substack, and I want you to meet you one day in real life. So it's so lovely to be able to connect like this as our first port of call. So welcome, Jo. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, you're so welcome. It's lovely to be here. I love a chat, so I'm happy to be here.
For those of us that work from home and work by ourselves, it's quite nice to connect, isn't it? I think some of my friends say that it feels like kind of connecting with your colleagues. So that's
Yeah,
really nice.
definitely. What a cooler chat.
Yeah, water cooler chat. So welcome everybody. If you have any questions, then please pop them in the chat as we go. And if you're watching on playback, then add them to the comments and I will reply. So Jo, let's go in. We're talking about Mental Health Awareness Week, and how is your mental health today?
How's my mental health today? It is good. My mental health is good. I've just been on holiday, which was much needed, and um, I am transitioning in my life at the minute because had a yoga studio in Newcastle City Centre that I had for 10 years, and I had a lot of community there. And I made the decision to close the doors and go online. And this is the first week that I haven't had anything to do in the evening. Because for well, longer than 10 years, because even before I had the studio, um, my life has been that I go and I teach yoga in the evenings and at weekends.
Yeah,
And this is the first week, so I feel a little bit like I'm still on holiday, especially because the sun's shining.
yeah.
So my mental health feels a little bit like, why am I not drinking Pimm's in the park? That's how it feels.
And so you said goodbye to the studio before you went on your holidays, and
hmm
how did that feel? Was it like it the right time at the end of a chapter, or was it a bit bittersweet?
It's a bit bittersweet. I think I'm not very good at endings anyway. Like, I've never
Mm,
been good at endings. I've always been like a leave and then process it 20 years later and then be like 20 years later in therapy be like, oh, that was tougher than I thought it was. But this has been it feels like a really natural transition, to be honest, because I don't feel like I'm going from that to nothing. I feel like the
mm,
yoga for tired people really has become a studio without walls. It's like it feels
mm,
like I've got those connections, but it was bittersweet because I've had people who've been coming for 10 years and I've seen them every week, and
mm,
but what's good is that I'm going to have to make more of an effort with my social life now, because
mm.
for 10 years I've just been like, come and have a coffee at the studio and
Yeah.
I'll see people when I see. And then what's happened in the past is when there's been like a holiday or something and I'm like, oh, I haven't got anyone because I never make an effort because I never need to. So
Mm,
I'm going to be a bit more conscious and like deliberate with how I'm spending my time. But yeah, it doesn't feel real. It feels a little bit like I've been on
mm.
holiday and now I'm still on holiday, and I think it'll take a couple of weeks before I'm like, oh, before I start missing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can imagine, and also like all that free time. Like
hmm
it's we all kind of like dream, don't we, of having free
hmm
time, and we're like so busy, so busy. I just want a bit of peace and kind of it'd be great not to have anything to do. But if you're used to filling your time, then that could be an interesting period, right? An interesting chapter for you.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't feel like I have got free time, because what was happening, because obviously the on you'll know this because you've run an online business. That's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
And then I have the teacher training as well, and I had the studio. So the reason why I had to give it up was because it was I was literally had three full-time jobs,
Okay.
like stacked on, and I was like, how can I be preaching and
Yeah.
because I really believe in space, and like I'm not just making lip surface, like I really believe in rest. And
Mhm.
I have to practice what I preach here. So yeah, but I think you're right. I am a very busy person, so it is going to be like but I meditate a lot, so I'm used to stillness.
Yeah, sure. So we're going to be talking about community as
Mm.
self-care then, and that could be online and offline. We'll talk about both maybe. But before we go into that as that topic, what do you think about community as the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week this year?
I think it's really an interesting one. I think that finally we're starting to have conversations around. Um, but I think for a long time the mental health conversation has been very individual, so it's been very like, how can you fix yourself?
Hmm.
And we have missed out the opportunity to talk about the fact that we don't just self-regulate, we co-regulate. You can't, we're not just a, we're not one system, we're incorporated into a bigger system. And I think for a long time, the wider conversation has almost been like a, it's, I think one of the reasons why our culture has embraced the conversation as it is so much is because it's been quite easy for people to say, like, well, okay, go and fix yourself then. Like,
Read this
off you
book,
go.
do
Yeah,
that
off you
course.
go, off you go.
Yeah.
And I find it really frustrating as a yoga teacher because I really do believe in the healing system of yoga. I really believe that we have agency and autonomy within our life, but I also believe that that doesn't exist in a vacuum. And
Mm.
as like, I probably shouldn't say this because it's, I do want to be hired at some point again.
The yoga
Uh,
please, you call it. I love that when you say yoga please will arrest me for this one.
but like I sometimes get frustrated when I used to do quite a lot of corporate stuff. So I used to go into workplaces a lot, and I would get very frustrated that I was being asked to basically be lip service or a sticky plaster, and they'd be like,
Mm,
"Can you sort out the stress?" And I'm like, I think like I can teach people how to breathe and I can teach people how to self-regulate, but I can't fix a system where you're asking your
yeah,
employees just to work too hard.
yeah.
And like stress isn't just a individual problem, it's a systemic problem as well. So I think it's brilliant that we're starting to talk about community, but I also feel like, yeah, maybe I'm being a pessimist, but sometimes I feel like even then it's like, go make your own communities. Like
Mm,
like go, like it's the impetus is on like us to fix, and that can be exhausting too, because like who does that who does that responsibility usually fall on? Who are the community makers? And quite often they are, um, the people who have a lot on their plate anyway.
yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Something that's come across actually in the because I've done two of these conversations already is the idea of community being like it's like a network of people, but it's not your family. It's not even probably not even your kind of old friends.
mm,
It's definitely not the people you work with. So even if those are groups of people who you love and care for and have different interactions with, the idea of community is maybe something that's a bit more intentional. So it's something that, like you say, it's like seeking it out. It is almost something to do, but when you find it or when you are able to embrace it, if it maybe it's already in your life and you just don't really realize it. Like for instance, if you're a member of like your group or my group, there is community there. So maybe it's just kind of working out how you show up for it or what it can give to you. But would you agree with that? The idea that family and friends and colleagues are not necessarily community.
I think I would agree with that. I think community is any structure of people that exist in close proximity. So
Mm.
I think the idea of a family group is, uh, it's the way that we structure it is cultural anyway. Like if you go to different cultures, they have different, like I saw a TikTok the other day, so peer reviewed study from the TikTok that I saw the other day that was saying about how even the language that we use for family. So in
Mm.
different languages, they don't necessarily differentiate between your uncle and your father because of the way that their family group is set up. Um, there's no need to differentiate because
Mm.
it's just close because of the way that they interact with each other. And so our language in our society has basically created this idea of how we live in our family groups. So I think the family group is an artificial thing anyway. So um community is what you make it, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I think it can include your family, and it depends what definition you're using. But I think I would definitely, when I think about my own experience, like I would definitely include my family in my when I'm thinking about my community.
Sure. So let's learn a little bit about your communities then,
Yeah.
or community. But I imagine there's a few different ones that kind of
Yeah.
overlap, maybe. And what do you, how do you use community now, or what communities do you have in your life, and how's that maybe changed over, say, I don't know, the last 10, 20 years?
I think for something that I'm really having to grapple with, um, and I think this was something that was really instilled in me when I was younger. So my granddad was a fireman, and he broke his knee, which meant that he retired quite early. So when I was younger, when I was like 3 or 4, my granddad looked after us all of the time. So I would just hang out with my granddad all of the time. And because he was retired, he would go and see all the old people in the local community. So he would go and make sure that everyone was all right, and we would like just go around. And it was very much, it was instilled in us that you have a responsibility to your neighbors as well. Like you have
Mm,
a responsibility to the like people around you. And I don't know if this is something that is has just changed in culture in general, or um, but it was always this thing of like, there is a responsibility, and the payoff that you get from community is like you, you it sometimes needs to like, it can't just always be convenient. Like
mm,
sometimes it means that you have to get up and off your sofa, and when you would rather be watching the telly, to go and
yeah.
see that, make sure that Miss Ivy down the road has got. And I think I really rebelled against that, because I was like, well, why is it my responsibility? Like
Mm,
I'm actually just going to hang out with my friends and blah, blah. And as I've got older, I'm like, oh, but what you get from that is you get a sense of community. That is probably the word. Like you get a sense of safety and like feeling like you belong, and there's a payoff, isn't there? That's why you've got to there's like a I can't think what I'm saying. Like a community comes from effort. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, sure. And it's almost like a feel. What you described there felt like a feeling rather than
Yeah.
like community as, like, I don't know, a noun. Or it's almost like community is, it's like creating that community. It involves putting the effort in. But quite a lot of the self help that I read around how to help yourself kind of get out of a hole. Say it's like when you feel helpless, help someone else, and
Mhm.
it's because the feeling, and there's definitely science behind this, the feeling you get and the benefit you get from helping someone else is, it helps you feel useful, it helps you feel like belonging, it helps you kind of create that sense of safety. So there's definitely something that must be very innate in us, right? That kind of like the tribal need to look after each other, because and then you can expect it back without feeling needy, or without feeling yeah, like it's not that, without feeling like it's not okay to ask for help.
And I think that's a really important bit about asking, being able to ask for it back, because I I think when I've been saying about like, it needs to be, it can be inconvenient. I think there's also this level of, but part of being a community is that you're allowed it back too. Like
Yeah.
you can't really be in community with people that you're just given all of the time with. Like there's probably never, it's a bit like relationships, isn't it? There's like probably never going to be a point where it's always going to be 50-50. You give like, you take up a bit of the, and then they take up a bit of the, and it's like that with community, is that you're allowed to ask for it back. And one of the things that I've been thinking about recently is because I love helping my neighbors. Like I love it. Like I just love it. Like so, if someone goes on holiday, like I'm always the first person to be like, I'll look after your cats.
Mm.
I'll water your garden. And it's because it makes me feel embedded in a community.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that I'm not so good at asking for that back in return. But
Mm.
actually, I think there's a real kindness in saying, you can do this for me. Like
Yeah.
it's it there is a people need to be needed, don't they? So there's being able to like have that back as well. And I think that's often where the resentment comes from as well when people think about communities, because it's always presented as this thing that you're given and not necessarily something that you're allowed to ask for back.
Yeah, sure. One of the comments yesterday was it was Selena Barker I was talking to, and she was saying sometimes in my community, people they're there, but they're not faces not on the camera, and they're not necessarily giving every week, but just the presence and the energy is what it takes to kind of be in a community. And one of the comments was, we don't want community to be something else on the to do list or like another
Yeah.
chore to do. But I think what you're describing is, yeah, it's like being enmeshed in a group of people and giving and taking and receiving and sharing as needed. And there's something so lovely about that. I love I'm sure you know Brené Brown, you are such a big reader. But I love her quote about vulnerability is the last thing I want you to see in me and the first thing I want to see in you. And I think
Yeah.
it's so true. It's like when someone shows you that they need a bit of help, you warm to them more, don't you? It's not because you like them being helpless, just you think, oh, I can help you and I understand that you're human too. But then we have to remember to share that of ourselves.
And I think it gives you like a practical thing to do. Like it's a thing that you can show that you're needed and that you're
Mm.
part of something, is being like, I can do this tangible thing for this other person. And it's just it, and it's strange, isn't it? Because it's the way we think of, I wonder if it's how we feel about power, if it's like we don't want people it to take our power away when someone's, or maybe it's that we just don't want to inconvenience someone, or maybe it's a mixture of everything. But yeah, I'm trying to get better at being like, actually, could you put my bins out on Wednesday? And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well done. Well done, you. This is growth. And so you wanted to talk about community as part of this kind of self care. And a lot of the work you do is around nervous system and kind of helping ourselves feel safe and calm. And I feel like I'm already getting that feeling from this conversation that that's very much what we can get from community. Can you maybe give us a bit more detail on that?
I think we think of our nervous systems as I was just laughing there because I saw a meme the other day that said, I think all of my systems are nervous. And I
Yeah,
was like
relate.
we think that of our nervous system as being this like one thing that's like my nervous system, but that's not, like, we co-regulate. So if you think about what happens when we have a hug, what happens when we have a
Mm,
conversation, like, I think a lot of my thinking comes from the fact that I was originally trained in like pre and postnatal yoga. So
mm,
like that was the lens that I looked at everything like I learned, like that was my, like, I learned from that. And then and so much from prenatal yoga is around like hormones and the way that hormones interact with yourself, but also your partner and your baby, and like how that impacts on. And it's like birth is not like that's not a thing that one person does. It's like a dance between you and the baby and the people in
mm,
the room. And like oxytocin is catching, like
mm,
like if you, I don't know if you've ever been in a room with babies, like if you go to a mum and baby like yoga group or something. And I haven't got kids, but I love, like, doesn't mean I don't like being with them. And if you walk into a room with like babies, notice how long it takes you before you start to sway. So what you'll find is all the mums and the babies, they'll all be swaying together.
mm,
And it's because we're all just being in that space um is influencing the hormones in our body.
mm.
So I think community is so, I don't think that you can have a a nervous system that is um balanced, whatever that means, in a bigger nervous system. Like, it needs to be more like, I don't think of us as purely being individuals. I think
Mm,
we interact consciously and unconsciously all of the time. Like immediately, like if you're driving along and someone beeps their horn at you, immediate nervous
yeah,
system dysregulation.
yeah, sure.
If somebody has if your partner comes in and they've got a mood on from work, and they immediate, and it's not even necessarily that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that it's how we survive. Like,
Mm,
humans wouldn't survive if we didn't live in groups. I always talk about this, like, humans are pretty pathetic. Like, haven't got big teeth, we haven't got sharp claws, we can't run that fast, we can't swim that far, we can't like in all like I don't necessarily think that I could win a fight with a four goats. Like like I can't think of an animal like I think my cats could probably gang up on us
Thank
if they
you.
wanted to Um, but yet we are top of the food chain because we're able to have this community and quite complex social structure where we can look after
Mm,
each other and come up with lots of things like we can look into the future and things like that. But I think it's who is it serving for us to only think of our nervous systems as being these completely individual things? And I don't think it's serving us. I think it's probably serving a bigger, um,
mm,
propping up a system that already
yeah.
exists.
Yeah, I love that example about the babies. It's like resonance, isn't it? It's like that's a
Mhm,
very yeah, that's a really kind of like I can really kind of imagine I can vividly imagine that example. I have a friend and she likes getting up really late at the weekends and she always tells me she said, "Well, it's not it's just in us. Somebody had to stay up late overnight so the
mhm.
animals didn't come and eat everybody else and that was probably my ancestors' job." And
Yeah.
so she talks about yeah, the idea that we all have different roles in community and in society. And I did interview David Hamilton, and he talks a lot about the mind-body connection. And this was during lockdown, and he said that kindness is something like 7 times more contagious than COVID. And it's because so when you do a kind thing for somebody, it makes them feel so good that they will then do a kind thing for a few more people, and then they'll go and do another kind thing for a few more people. And I love that idea of the ripple effect. But I suppose that does, as to your point at the beginning of the conversation, that does kind of go back, so there is some responsibility on us if you are looking to have more community in your life, if you listen to conversations like this or understand that there might be some benefit in it. I suppose there's a bit of responsibility on actively seeking it out, maybe, or intentionally showing up as you would like to be treated.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my strong points. I don't know if you're allowed to say that about yourself, but
Yes, you are.
one of
Absolutely, you are, Joe.
one of my strong points is I find it really easy to make friends. Like
Oh,
because like I've always made it easy to found it easy to make friends, and I think the reason why is because I will ask people to do things for us. Like I've
mm,
always had this like not and to do things with me. So I've always had this like you're entitled to ask and people are entitled to say no kind of philosophy where it's like if I want to go for coffee with someone I can ask them and they're entitled to say no and I won't take offense if they say no,
mm,
but I'm well within my and I think so many people kind of stay on the peripheral of friend because they and I think quite often that asking someone to do something for you or doing something for someone else is often like the bridge that
yeah.
take somebody from and it's lovely when you have that feeling, isn't it? When you're like, I had this feeling recently with someone that I've known for a couple of years, but we've been going for coffee. But she was probably in the peripheral of my friend. And then we had a joke, and I had this thing, and I was like, "Oh, you're my proper friend now."
Oh,
I
that's
was like,
lovely.
I was like, "Oh, we're friends. We're friends
Yeah,
now." And I think you do have to like put yourself out there to, and I think when you build in a community, sometimes like even people on paper that you feel like should doesn't always gel. So it's like
yeah,
not taking the rejection too hard and being like, well, I can just ask someone else and I can just and it's like a muscle that you can work at, I think. And because I
yeah,
think people take it very they're like, these are my friends, these are my community, and um if they're busy or if they've just had kids or they've like if something has happened then it it it's much more difficult and I think it's the way that society's structured as well but like you've got to you've got to put yourself out there which is such trite advice but it's true you've got to put
yeah.
yourself out there.
Well, it's practice, isn't it? It's like
Mhm.
anything. Anything, anytime you do anything, it gets easier with practice. Like these lives, like driving
Mm.
a car, like I've got a mad rescue dog, and it's like taking him for walks at the beginning was so horrible and hard, but it's like now I love it. So it's just like things get better with practice. And when I suppose when it comes to humans, it's like, yeah, the fear of rejection can be huge, can't it? But there's so many benefits. Do you have any advice, just to close then, because I'm aware of time? Do you have any advice for people who are kind of listening to this and thinking, yeah, I get it. This is probably something I could do with more in my life, but I already feel a bit overwhelmed with everything else
Mm.
that I'm trying to do.
I think there's so much to be said for like daily interaction. So I think one of the things that we've
Mm,
done in our society is we've taken the friction away, but often the friction was the thing that was creating our chances to have human like
yeah.
interactions and experiences. So like now instead of going to the shops, like Tesco comes and delivers my stuff, and instead of like going to the post office, it's like all of these little human interactions. Like instead of
Mm,
um paying a bus driver, I just tap my thing on.
yeah.
And I think sometimes what I have, and I know I know that this comes from a place of privilege as well, because I have time privilege, because
Mm,
I have the time to be able to do this. But um even if your time um scarce, like I'm sure there's little bits in it that you can do where it's like, okay, and like you can practice on the shop assistant, and you can like
yeah.
not wear your headphones when you're in the shop, and
Mhm.
like say hello to people, and like ask people how they are, and not necessarily just the people who are doing their jobs, but like the bus stop, like
Yeah.
say hello, like things like that, like the things that you can do in your every, like you don't necessarily have to go looking, because I think there's a big emphasis on building community, but not as much emphasis on nurturing the community that we already have
Yeah.
in our everyday life of
Yeah.
like our neighbors and our just people. And yeah, they might not necessarily be your bestest friends that are exactly like you, but they're still people in your proximity, and I think those relationships are important too.
Yeah, such good advice as well. And it's not the end of the world if you say hello to someone and they don't say, although it feels like it in the moment, maybe they don't say hello back. One of our members challenged herself after a book we read to say hello to at least one person in the lift every day, because she used to get lifts
Oh,
up and down for work. And she was like, and by the end she loved it. She was like making, like, they're not going to be maybe friends for life. She's not getting married to these people, but it just makes her day so much nicer because there's those interactions. But it's like you have to push through that like gnarly bit at the
mm.
beginning, don't you, to get yourself there.
And I think it's easier as well. Again, like I am from the northeast of England, so like if you don't actually have a sign saying "get away from me," you are going to be like bombarded with older people coming and chatting to you. So maybe it is a bit easier up here, but even like you say, just hello in the lift, and it because it's those little, and it makes you feel so like, I don't know, it's just such a good mood disruptor, isn't it? Like you to get
Yeah,
yourself out of your own head.
yeah, bit of perspective. Shana said we need a better word for small talk. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Brilliant. Joe, thank you so much. It was nearly 1:30. I can't believe it. I could
I
talk
know
to you
that's
all day
flown,
about this.
Tony.
I
This was
know.
absolutely gorgeous. So nice to have a chat with you.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you everybody for being here. Enjoy your day and go on. And that's such great advice, I think. Start practicing small with like your local community, and then from that, who knows what would happen. So lovely to see you, everybody. Nice to see you, Joe. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.